Good Thursday, everyone. Welcome to the Volquest.com mailbag podcast presented by our good friends at Exterior Home Solutions. Give them a call today at 865-524-5888 for whatever your exterior home needs are. They do fencing, they do siding, they do windows, they do decking, and obviously they do roofing as well. So if you're in need of a new roof or you think you may have some roof damage, remember, I got all these storms rolling through this time of year as well. So be sure and use our good friends. If you're in East Tennessee, check out our good friends at Exterior Home Solutions. Again, 865-524-5888. I'm Brent Hubbs, along with Grant Ramey, Rob Lewis, Austin Price. Plenty of questions to get to. Guys, we're going to dive on into your favorite podcast of the week, and we're going to start with More Steam. More Steam wants to know, if Jalen Wright and Dylan Sampson continue to improve and take the next step, where does that leave Jabari Small in the running back rotation? Austin Price, you're up first.
With a smaller number of carries, pun intended. I mean, how much does he lose though, right? Like, I think that he's the one player that, had to be sitting there all spring going, man, it's nice to have the spring off, but watching these other guys have some success is not good for me. And so, when you throw in him, you throw in some of those younger backs, this is a fairly deep room, considering a year ago it was not real deep at all. But I think Dylan Sampson, is starting to ascend. How much of the Jabari Small carries can he take is the real question for me.
Grant, for me, the interesting thing about the running back deal is when you're going up tempo, you don't rotate within series.
Nope.
And so if you get the series and you got a hot hand and you get a couple of series back to back, somebody's numbers are automatically going down if you're making first downs because you're just not rotating guys.
No, and it's a good problem to have, I think, to have this number of guys and you're trying to figure out where your carries are going to come from and you're trying to figure out which one's going to be the guy that gets the most carries because it feels like you have quite a few options, with Sampson, with Jalen Wright, with Jabari Small, with Cam Seldon. I mean, we were talking on the Tuesday podcast about who would have more value or which would have a better value going into the season. And it's hard to figure out which one does because you don't really have a kind of, you don't really know who's going to be the hot hand and who's going to get the most carries. So I think for Tennessee, I don't think enough gets talked about what they do production-wise in the run game and how good they have been under Josh Heupel in the run game because everybody looks at the passing numbers and how explosive they are. But they produce a ton. Like you were talking about earlier in the week, it almost kind of felt like Jalen Wright was the quiet, leading rusher for this team and did a lot without a ton of people talking about them. So I think it's a really good problem for Tennessee to have that you're trying to figure out where these carries are going to come from for some of these guys.
Rob, you better not take a day off if you're a running back.
No, I like the running back room. I mean, I don't know that you have, an NFL first rounder like you've seen at Georgia and Alabama in the last couple of years. But I mean, I like Dylan Sampson. I mean, when you're talking about Jabari Small losing carries, and he's not Chuck Webb, but I mean, that's a 4-year player in the SEC that's been a productive back for you. I mean, like Grant said, I mean, that's a pretty good problem to have, and it's legit. I mean, Dylan Sampson showed at the end of last year that he was a player. If he hadn't missed that blitz pickup at LSU and almost gotten hit and killed, I mean, he might have had a much bigger role, in the meat of the season last year. And we've not even talked about Seldon. I mean, I think that's a guy that's, I'm not saying he's going to get 20 carries a game, but I would think you might want to see him on the field. I mean, I think you got 4 guys there legit that look like SEC players in Small, Wright, Sampson, and Seldon.
Yep, and certainly Jerry Mack's got more competition and more to work with for sure. All right, let's go to Athron. He's got 4 here for us. So we'll start, Austin, with you. How does the running back board look, and when do the pieces start coming off the board and recruiting at that position?
Well, I think, you're looking at a core group of guys that are, Peyton Lewis, Braylon Russell, Daniel Hill, Nate Frazier, Chauncey, I forget the kid's name, he's committed to Florida. Again, to me, those are the key pieces here and the running back room. And so, Peyton Lewis, I feel like Tennessee continues to trend well there. We'll see when he makes it back in again. But I feel like Tennessee's got a lot of the momentum there. I think they have momentum with Braylon Russell. Now, Braylon Russell is going to take his officials in the month of June. South Carolina, Baylor, Tennessee, Arkansas, maybe one more. And then decide July 14th. Daniel Hill should be back in town next weekend for the Memorial Day event. He's not been in a long time. So, again, I keep saying he's this year's version of Noah Rogers, who says he's coming but never comes. So if he shows up, that could change some things because I think Tennessee really likes Daniel Hill a lot. A lot of people have him pegged for South Carolina, but how quick is he wanting to come to a decision? Is he wanting to do something now, or is he wanting to take some visits, take some officials after next weekend potentially, and then start working towards a decision? And if that's the case, then Tennessee would actually have a real shot there. And then Nate Frazier, I don't see him doing anything anytime soon. I think he's going to take several official visits all in June and then into the season and, with the unlimited number. I'm not going to say he's taking 10, but I think he'll take more than 4 or 5 and, decide sometime this fall. And then we'll see where it all falls. Tennessee was by to see Braylon Russell, watch him work out. I was told that he was super, super impressive for a kid that's over 240 pounds. And, I think that one's one to watch long term. And then, like I said, Tennessee continues to trend well with Peyton Lewis. But Tennessee's, two that they really like, Nate Frazier, Daniel Hill, as far as like guys that they have, really intriguing interest in. I think they've got to make it back to campus for that to be real. Max really likes Nate Frazier, too, it sounds like in the background. Every time I hear Nate Frazier, I think of Nate Bracey. And
Nate Bracey.
I'm sorry, Nate Frazier, but every time I hear that, I just smirk. Everybody's wondering, why are you smirking on the podcast? It's for whatever reason. Every time I hear the word Nate Frazier, Nate Bracey comes to mind.
And you're thinking about gluing him book covers on with Edgar Coleman.
I have no idea why that happens, Grant, but it's just the way it is. All right, Atheron, your second question. With Raiola going to Georgia, do the chances with Riddell go way down? Who would be next up at tight end if Riddell does go to Georgia, AP?
Well, I won't say they go way down. The question is how tied to, they're not like super tight, but I think Raiola does carry some weight with kids. But guess what? If you're any kind of recruiter at all, you're looking at Jaden Riddell and saying, hey, man, Dylan Raiola, a good player, right? But so was Gunnar Stockton. So was Brock Vandergriff. So was Carson Beck. And guess what? All those receivers that thought they could go catch passes from those three have yet to catch a pass from those three. And so, you can't go to a school because you like the quarterback prospect because he may or may not play. And so, I think that's kind of be the message for anybody that's recruiting Jaden Riddell. It'll be at Georgia this weekend, back to Tennessee next weekend, then it's officials in June. I think that one's a 50-50 coin flip at this point between Tennessee and Georgia.
Yeah. Khalia Keith will be on campus later at the end of this month. So
How about you cut him, Hubs? You told me I thought you cut him.
Cut who?
Khalia Keith.
No, I just forgot.
I read the War Room last week.
I didn't cut him. I forgot him. I made an omission. All right.
It's my fault. I didn't have the full War Room sent to me last week. I just handled the recruiting part.
Yeah, because you're on golf course.
I was on golf duty
in your world tour.
I'll take the blame. I will take the blame.
No, that one's on me. That's totally on me. All right. Better season, Elijah Herring or Caleb Perry? Rob, go first. Who do you think has a better season?
Man, I just have to go with Herring just because he played last year. He got his feet wet. I mean, I think Caleb Perry looks like $1 million, but Elijah Herring found his way onto the field early and pretty consistently last year. So I'll go with Herring.
I'll go with Herring too. I pulled up the stats. They're basically the identical player from the 2022 stats, but Herring had a couple of sacks and 2.5 tackles for loss.
Well, and a lot of Perry's were special teams, and then the one game late in the year, the non-power 5. Who was it? Non-power 5 blowout. He got in the second half. Played a lot and made 6 or 7 tackles that day.
Yeah, I'm going to Elijah Herring as well. I think he'll be in the 2 deep. I'm not sure that Caleb Perry will be.
Gator Dog wants to know, where does the D-line rank among the SEC teams? Didn't hear much about Tyree West during the spring as well. Grant, where do you got this defensive line?
I have no idea where this defensive line ranks in the SEC because I have no idea what the SEC defensive lines look like. I think they got a pretty good defensive line coach, and you'll have them in the mix, though.
It's May 17th, Ramey. I mean, you don't know what Arkansas's got in the TV?
I haven't got out the study guides for the media guides for South Carolina and Kentucky. That's my June project, not my May project.
So Grant has them below Georgia and above Vanderbilt.
There we go. Somewhere in there.
Somewhere in the middle.
Right?
Somewhere in there.
Somewhere in the middle. Right,
I mean,
AP?
That's right. I mean, look, some nice pieces, but they need to have some continued growth. Hubs, you talked about Bryson Eason on the Tuesday podcast. I think he's got to take a step. The poster just talked about Tyree West. He needs to take a step. What does Tyree Weathersby give you once he arrives? Because I know Tennessee's extremely high on him and excited for him. David Hobbs did not go through spring. What does he provide? Again, those are two things you can't talk about because no one knows. They've not went to a practice field for Tennessee yet. But when you talk about Bryson Eason, when you talk about Big O, who I think is poised to have a really nice senior year, and then you look at some of those edge guys, what does Tyler Barron do? To me, this is a contract year for Tyler Barron.
I was waiting on it, AP.
Needs to have a good year. He needs to be motivated. Tyler Barron's got all the talent in the world. When motivated, he can be really, really good. If he plays motivated and has that Albert Haynesworth type year, he's a guy that could really catapult himself because he's got a build that, again, some things you just can't teach. Some things are God-given.
Yep. He's got to stay healthy. He's got to fight through a little bit. And as you mentioned, he's got to take full advantage of the opportunity because this is the year for him is in your famed, and I think it's a great analogy, the famed contract year.
It's the Jeff Blauser year, baby, to put this in Atlanta Braves terms.
Hey, the Jeff Blauser year. Your thoughts on Jeff Blauser, Grant Ramey? Are you a big Jeff Blauser guy?
Every time I think of contract year, I'm not trying to be rude to Albert Haynesworth here, but I think of Albert Haynesworth because he got paid and
Jeff Blauser got paid too to go to the Cubs and then disappear. Give me Mark Lemke greater than Jeff Blauser. Boom, baby.
I think the new Jeff Blauser is Dansby Swanson. Let's go with that.
Terry Middleton over them all.
Here's the real question for anybody that had PBS in the 80s or early 90s. Mark Lemke or Glenn Hubbard, Grant Ramey? Go.
I was born in '88. I don't.
You got nothing. You got no Glenn Hubbard.
Mine starts. My Braves fandom probably starts around the time Andrew Jones is hitting home runs in the Bronx in the World Series.
So it's 96.
In the morning. I had Glenn Hubbard baseball cards and a poster hanging in a locker when I was a kid.
Hey, give me Rafael Belliard better than both, baby.
I had News Sentinel sports pages taped to my wall. So I was sleeping next to a mugshot of John Adams on some column about Cozy Coleman or Kazi Coleman, whatever his name was.
Oh, jeez, I'm old. Holy smokes. Vols by 1998 wants to know why is Josh Heupel's contract buyout what he would owe Tennessee if he left so small? If the NFL came calling, do you see him leaving?
I think any college coach would leave for the NFL. I know I would.
Yep, I agree.
I don't have to. I get paid more money, and I don't have to call 16-year-old kids.
And I have to deal with NIL and the transfer portal.
And boosters and professors and the Thornton Center. Yeah, so where do I sign? Yeah, anybody's leaving for the NFL. Newsflash.
Yeah, I mean.
Am I crazy to think that Heupel kind of succeeds in the college atmosphere because of, the stuff he does to kind of build the culture and the, being a player's coach and a lot of like the.
Oh, but I think he's a college coach. I mean, for sure. Don't you guys? I mean, I agree with you, Grant, 100%. I just think any college coach would take the NFL gig and not deal with the headaches.
I think the thing with the transition, the challenging transition for some guys, longtime college guys going into the NFL. One, you got to go to a franchise that's going to give you a chance to win. But the bigger thing is you don't have full control. And because you got a scouting department coming to you and an ownership coming to you saying, this is who we're drafting. This is you don't get a say. You coach the team we assemble for you. I think for some college coaches, Grant, that's a really hard challenge because they've spent their whole career putting together their team the way they want to put it together. And I think, that's why you've seen some college coaches, I think, have a struggle when they go up to that, quote, next level. But from a workload standpoint, I mean, you talk to anybody, assistant, head coach, whatever, the NFL workload standpoint is much, much more manageable these days than the college life is. And it's not even close.
That first point you made is the Parcells, if they want you to cook the dinner, at least they ought to let you buy the groceries, right?
Yep.
I think that losing control would be tough. I also think, and I talked to Rick about this years ago when he first got to Tennessee about the NBA. He said, if you're going to coach in the NBA, you better be okay with getting fired because you're going to get fired. And are you going to be able to handle that? And you're going to be able to stick around and bounce back and do whatever you have to do after you get fired. And I think we've seen that in the NBA, but I think it's the same thing in the NFL. If you're going there, you better be ready to get fired and figure out what's next after you get fired.
In turn,
It's kind of like when you come to work at Volquest.
oh yeah,
I think it's pretty easy to figure out what's next when you're Cliff Kingsbury and you cash a $20 million buyout check and head to Thailand with a one-way ticket.
Yeah.
It's not like you got 2 months severance and you got to figure out how you're going to pay your kids' tuition and buy and pay rent in 2 months.
If you hadn't noticed, Eric Kane's not here this week. So.
By the way, Cliff Kingsbury on the Southern Cal staff, right?
Yes.
Yeah, which is crazy. As for Josh Heupel's contract buyout being small, I guess it's what, $6 million after December of 24. Is that right?
I mean, it's less than his annual salary, which I bet is pretty rare.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, when you win 10 games and you got all the leverage in the world going right there, you kind of get the deal that you want. And then he's not the first college coach around the country to leverage well. And he's not the first one on this campus to leverage well either. So that's just the way in the world that we live in these days. HSV Vol wants to know, who is your most underappreciated Vol, and how do you see the 24 O-line, D-line class shaping up? He didn't specify. I don't know if he means underappreciated of all time or currently on this team. Let's go all time for fun. Who's your most underappreciated Vol in your mind there, Rob Lewis?
I'll tell you.
I would ask Grant, but Grant's going to give me somebody that played like 8 years ago.
No.
Grant's going to say Eric Berry.
No.
Come on. In all seriousness, man, he was an all-conference player, but I did not fully appreciate Josh Dobbs when he was here. Not even close. He covered up so much of Butch Jones's incompetence. In those final 2 years. I thought Josh was good. I could completely sold him short as we were seeing it. And that's an all-conference guy. That's not exactly an under-the-radar dude, but I did not appreciate everything he did for this program.
Are you going to let him get by with that recent of a pick?
I told Grant, I threw a lot of caveats out there.
Go ahead, Grant.
I'm going to go with Raynoch Thompson.
Ooh, you just got Hubbard's stinger just went up.
Why? Is that good or bad?
No, he loves him for Raynoch Thompson.
How can he not love the knock?
Raynoch Thompson felt like what's the other guy in the Rat Pack that nobody knows, Peter Lawford or whatever it is. Yeah, everybody knows Dean and Frank and Sammy Davis Jr. Nobody knows Peter Lawford. Feels like everybody just forgets about Raynoch Thompson, how good he was.
His story's unbelievable. I mean, I've told this story before. The day I'm standing there in the summer, and the guy in the Mercedes-Benz, I think it was a Mercedes-Benz, gets out. Raynoch gets out of the car. They open the trunk, and he gets out 2 grocery bags. Like plastic grocery bags. And that's all he brought to Knoxville with him. That's all he had. And he was about 145 or 50 pounds, it looked like. He was bigger than that, but he wasn't very big. And you're like, who is this guy? And then the next thing you know, years later, he's absolutely mauling people beside Al Wilson. One of my favorite guys of all time. He played unbelievable, tough as nails. AP.
I'm going to go David Leverton. Big tackle in the championship game. Nobody talks about him. And then I will go superlative throw in Benson Scott. He did not go laces out. Or sorry, he did not go laces in. He went laces out for that kick against Florida.
All right, this was just for Hubbard. Since I kind of cheated with Josh Dobbs, but that was really about how bad Butch was and how good Josh was. Get in the Wayback Machine just for Hubbard. Chris White, 1986 Sugar Vols.
Maybe my favorite Vol from the '85 team, which says a lot because there's a lot of really good players, and everybody loved Tony Robinson. But
former walk-on from Cleveland, Tennessee, never played.
Year he had. What a year
never played.
Chris White was terrific under
first team All-American safety.
Yeah, unbelievable year he had. Led the conference in interceptions that year, coming out of nowhere for sure.
Can I also throw one more in? Tyrone Hines.
Tyrone Hines was a good player.
I love Tyrone Hines.
He was a really good player. Absolutely.
See the best 47 that's played for the Vols?
I think AP's just throwing out 47s. Wasn't David Leverton 47?
43.
43. Dang, 43. I threw out a 46, so maybe we're just.
I never thought of this.
Hey, greatest 46 of all time, Carlton Neal.
No. We just talked. Hubbard just talked about him.
Pride of Chicago.
Not.
I know.
Come on.
I know. I was joking.
Tyrone Hines, 47. That's pretty good. I never even thought about that nickname.
Yeah, what a mess. If only NIL had been available back then. All right, AP, how do you see the 24 O-line, D-line class shaping up?
Right now, it's a work in progress. That's the easiest way to put it. I still wonder where they're going to go at tackle. I think they need a top-end tackle. Is that Ethan Callaway? Is that Brandon Baker? Who is that top-end tackle? I think they're in a good spot with Max Anderson as we head to the end of May, but that one's not done. I think they're in a good spot with the Satterwhite kid out of Ohio, but again, that one's not done as of now. And so, but neither one of those guys I would say are like top-end tackles. I think Max Anderson will be the closest. I think Satterwhite could be a center. I mean, he's not real tall. He's like 6'2". You got to find tackles, and I think they've got to find a top flight prep guy, and then I think they got to go to the portal after the year, because the likelihood is they're going to lose, probably all three of their main tackles after this year. And then defensive line, I think they're in a good spot with Winery, Cam Franklin. They're in a good spot with Cam Fountain. They're in a good spot with two or three of those edge guys. But again, you got to be able to get them in the boat. It's great to be in a good spot with them in May. You got to find a way to close. If they close with them, then they've had an excellent defensive line class. Even if they don't land them all, if they land their share, they've had an excellent defensive line class. But to me, the biggest question still is offensive tackle, and that ain't even close.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be interesting to see what happens there and how that shakes out. It's the most coveted position out there to find for sure. Hey, I've been telling you about our good friends at Exterior Home Solutions. Don't forget, they can take care of all your needs as one of East Tennessee's premier companies in roofing and all the other things they do. That is Exterior Home Solutions. Your roof, it's the most important protection against nature for your home or your business. That's why I trust the experts at Exterior Home Solutions. Let's get right back to the questions, and we go to Nashville 615. Which SEC schools have new coaches this time next year? Everyone seems to be on somewhat solid footing for a variety of reasons, but it seems like somebody always gets fired. Anybody in trouble in this league? It doesn't feel like it for the first time.
Jimbo.
Okay, he would be the closest.
And really, they're the unknown. They could totally flip this thing around and have a good year. There's still talent on that roster. Now, they lost some really key pieces, but there's still talent there. So, to me, they're the X factor. They're the X factor for Tennessee's season. They're the X factor for a lot of people, in my opinion. What does Texas A&M look like? Because if they have another, dud season, I don't think they're going to hesitate after this year. I don't care how big that buyout is. They're not going to keep letting that thing go down and down and down. So, to me, he's the one that makes the most sense. And then heading into expansion, I'm going to go ahead and throw out Mark Stoops' time at Kentucky is going to end. I think he's going to look to get out after this year, because that road is going to get a little bit tougher to get to those magic 8 wins and the extensions and the rollovers and all that he's had the last few years.
That non-win.
I just think he'll look to move on.
That non-win SEC schedule will be tough for the Cats, won't
it? We got to make sure they get to a 9-game schedule first, right?
I think they're going to go to 9. No, there's no way I think they stay at 8. I think they might be 9-0 or 9-1.
Yeah, they keep Mississippi State as a permanent opponent, I think.
We'll see. That vote in Destin is going to be interesting to see what happens out there and see where TV is with everything. I'm not saying I agree. I think they have to end up at 9, but I think
that there was only like 2 or 3 that were not. Tells me the fact that there was only 2 or 3 that were against 9 tells me they'll get there. A lot of people would have to reverse course, in my opinion, to not end up at least 9.
Yeah, we'll see. I think they're going to get there, but that whole debate, I think, is going to be pretty fascinating the end of this month in Destin, Florida. Do you think 7 ACC schools can force their way out of the conference? If they do, which ones would the SEC covet if the Magnificent 7 or whatever they're calling themselves break away from the ACC?
Well, I think you'd covet Clemson. I think you'd covet Florida State. I think you'd covet at least one of the Virginia schools, North Carolina. All those geographically make a ton of sense. The question is how big is the SEC willing to get? I think the Big Ten is going to be willing to get bigger. How big does the SEC want to get?
I mean, I think it's interesting because you just rattled off, Clemson, FSU, North Carolina basketball. Those are some great brands. But I mean, hasn't the expansion for the SEC for the most part been driven by by television and like the number of eyeballs you're getting in markets. And, you know, again, if you're a football fan, you're going to watch Clemson, you're going to watch Florida State, but you're not, you know, going forth and breaking new ground, and you know, you're not expanding the footprint like you did when you added Texas A&M and brought in, you know, the whole Texas market. I mean, you're not bringing in people that are unfamiliar with the SEC brand with Florida State, with Clemson. I mean, I think it enhances the league, but I just wonder how motivated Birmingham and the member schools are to do that from the television perspective.
I think the answer to the first part of the question is, yeah, you can force your way out if you get enough lawyers to figure out a way to get out of a contract. And if you're at enough of a disadvantage financially from TV deals that you're looking to get out of it. If you're that motivated, you can probably find a way to do it.
Yeah, that might get tied up for a while, you know, because it's a pretty hefty buyout to get out of there financially. The ACC is going to fight for their money. When you talk about that much money, nobody's going to get in a room and probably just hash out a quick settlement. We'll see. I think North Carolina would end up in the Big Ten. I think the SEC would have interest, but I think they would have interest in the Big Ten for them. And Clemson makes the most sense. I think Florida State is in an interesting spot because they're good at football, but they don't have great facilities. Like, where are they in terms of immersing themselves into a league at this level? You know what I mean? That financially, now TV would help them and they could up their game there. I think it would be really interesting to see kind of where Florida State wanted to go. I would imagine the SEC, but as Grant or Austin, you mentioned, how big does the SEC want to get when it's all said and done? But you're going to go to super conferences if that's where you're going to end up anyway. You're obviously going to get bigger in doing that. You got to make the right decisions if you're Greg Sankey and that comes about. Slappy Vol wants to know, I know things can change. Juju Mitchell was gone, then back, then gone. Jacob Warren was coming back, then leaning towards leaving, then came back. That being said, there are 14 guys who can't come back and their eligibility is up. There are 18 guys who can use their COVID year. Do we expect the majority of those 18 back, 50-50, or is the majority of those guys gone after this year?
I think it depends. I mean, like Javonte Spraggins. I think he could come back. I think he's probably gone. Cooper Mays could come back. I would lean to him being gone, but you just don't know, right? Like, I think a lot of it depends on NIL opportunities for those guys, that, would, potentially be up in the air. Some of them, you may not want back because you may need to fill their spot with guys out of the transfer portal to help you next year at positions you need help. Like let's say, Tennessee's got just a ton of guards. Are they going to just say, yeah, everybody can come on back? It's guards when they need tackles, when they can go out and get a tackle out of the portal. And then, again, what does the scholarship numbers look like a year from now, too, Hubbard, from a standpoint of the NCAA stuff? Like, if they come back and say, hey, we got to have 9 more over the next 3 years, so 3 a year, and you've got to be at 82 instead of 85, how does that alter your decision on things?
Yeah, for sure. Johnny Major's ghost to you, Grant Ramey, with Jack Swabert closing in on 70 years of age and most likely close to retirement. What would Danny White's level of interest be in the Notre Dame AD job? I
credit Johnny Major's ghost consistency, because I'm pretty sure I saw this word for word in the chat Monday night. I didn't touch it because I have no idea what Danny White's interest in the Notre Dame job would be. I have no idea when Jack's leaving or whatever. I mean, but again, like the running back room, this is a good problem to have. You want to be worried about your AD, and you want to be worried about your head coach taking other jobs, because that means you're doing something well. I think there's going to be interest in Danny White for a ton of jobs, because what he's done at Tennessee, what he's done throughout his career. It's just a matter of Tennessee doing enough to keep him, and I don't see where he's going that he wouldn't have more than what he has here, but we'll see. I guess that'd be my answer.
Hubbard, this has never occurred to me until Grant was answering the question. Has Tennessee had an athletic director in our lifetime that anybody else wanted to hire before this?
No,
I mean, Doug Dickey maybe, but I mean, he wasn't going anywhere.
Right. No, he wasn't leaving a second time.
No, seriously, I mean, Bob Woodruff is the first guy I remember. He was just the prototypical old Southern football coach that became the AD. I don't think they've had one.
No, here's the thing with Danny White too. Remember this: he's got a 5-year contract that stays whole. It rolls over every year with a guaranteed built-in raise every year. and he's making $2 million a year, and he's going to get at least 300 or a maximum of $300,000 worth of bonuses and incentives if his teams perform the way they performed the last 2 years, because he's maximized his bonus. It would have to be a heck of a contract for someone, I think, to get Danny White's interest, because he may have the best AD contract in the country with where he's at right now. Now, he also has
Rob's deal here at Volquest.
Do what?
Kind of sounds like Rob's deal here at Volquest. Automatic rollover, a couple million.
Raise.
I'm just glad I'm not with Kane this week.
Now, remember this about Danny White's contract. He has it specified in there that his buyout to leave drops in half if Donde Plowman's not here as the chancellor, which is an unusual caveat into a contract as well. But I think Danny White is happy with where things are at Tennessee right now in a conference that's obviously producing a lot of money. Rob A22, can you try to explain the best that you can rules on the transfer portal? What's considered tampering? What can coaches do or not do? How would a coach school have to? What would a coach school have to do to get in trouble? Example: what did Tony Vitello do that got him suspended? How did the NCAA find out what was done? This is in regards to Maui. Does the NCAA or did the university self-report the issue, or did the NCAA investigate and come up with a ruling on the suspension? I'll take the back half of that. I think, Austin, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think that was Kansas saying something to the NCAA that prompted a look into some of those things there. Perhaps I'm wrong, but that was always the narrative that I believe was the case that prompted that conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was multiple schools, that get involved, and again, everybody's pointing, look at that guy, when then in reality they're doing similar stuff, right? It's one of those deals where you have to be extremely careful. You can't make dumb mistakes. For Vitello in this instance, it's a mistake that he was willing to eat, and serve his couple of game suspension to get Maui to the field, and we'll see if it pays off with them getting hot here at the end, if they can actually win a game on the road.
Yeah, and go ahead, Rob.
I was just saying we all hear things. I mean, tampering is a big deal. I mean, like AP said, I mean, everybody's pointing the finger, like, look at that guy. I mean, I know everybody's heard it, but I know of multiple instances on Tennessee's current roster where collectives from other programs reached out, and there were actual numbers. Here's what you can get. If you come here, and that's, I'm sure.
Well,
50 kids on the football roster had the same kind of thing happen. I mean, it's everywhere.
Or 50 kids on the football roster use one kid's experience to their advantage. Hey, so and so's reached out.
Or somebody's dad calls.
They're willing to give me this, and then it's kind of like, game of chicken, baby. Are you going to end up in that pile of manure like Biff or not?
Oh, a little Back to the Future. That's a Back to the Future reference, Grant, if you were curious. That movie came out in 1985.
1985, 3 years before
Trust
Grant
me,
was born.
I've seen that one. Trust me, I've seen it. Relax.
Grant's parents had that one on VHS.
My dad was watching it in New Orleans watching the Sugar Balls.
Eric will watch this back, and he don't know what we're talking about. He's Googling right now what is Back to the Future.
All right, we got a couple more to get through. Then we got to get out the door here. Rocky Top Matt, this is a good question, actually. Can you pull the curtain back on how Tennessee makes its recruiting board? How much time do coaches spend watching tape of prospects versus the support staffers? How often do coaches meet to update their board? Who all is involved in updating the board? How much does character, leadership, work ethic factor in versus raw football talent? How much do they rely on the evaluation of recruiting services versus their own? Would love to know more about how the process works. Go ahead, Austin. Get it started.
Well, it starts with the scouting department, which is, the Brandon Lawson, Trey Johnson, Charlie High, all those guys. Then they get the tape to coaches, and they start deciding kind of who is what, right? This guy, if they have let's say the chart's 5-1, okay, that's not their chart, but I'm just saying for this purpose it's just easier to go 5 being elite, no brainer, 1 being nah. So they start putting them on the board and start working through it. Then it goes to what kind of ties do they have to the kid? How realistic is the kid? Like if the kid is a top-end kid and he lives 20 miles outside of Tuscaloosa, what are the chances, right? Like your chances go to way down. And then, again, it goes back to character. And then sometimes, once kids get on campus, schools find out, and not just Tennessee, but all of them find out there's medical problems. And so like a kid that, a fan thinks is a no-fire brainer, oh yeah, we're definitely taking that guy, all of a sudden has a little bit of a medical issue or an off the field issue where he's not doing well in the classroom or not doing well, just off the field. And it changes. And so those things never really get out. So sometimes fans will be like, man, I can't believe that, we had a real shot to him. We failed. We didn't get that guy. And there's always sometimes a backstory to why sometimes a kid doesn't end up here or there. Could be, a kid not ending up at Georgia because they found out something, or Tennessee because they found out something. So that to me, there's a lot of inner workings that go into decisions, and it's not just as simple as, hey, this kid's a 4-star on the.
At the end, I'm sure you and Grant too. Hear story. Maybe they come on an official visit and they spend the whole time on their phone.
Yep.
Or maybe they steal the iPad out of their hotel room.
Yep.
Or maybe they tell the head coach he's arrogant, as was the case years ago with a certain linebacker that played in Baton Rouge that told Philip Fulmer that. And that eliminated that conversation and eliminated that recruiting process at that point in time as well. But you're right. There's multiple layers to it. It starts with just the raw evaluation, and then you start really diving into it. And that's why it's so hard when a new staff comes in and they're playing such catch up, because it's not just you grab a recruiting list and you say, we go recruit those guys. You got to figure out, all the variables that go into it. And if you haven't been recruiting that caliber of kid or in this area, then it changes a good bit and makes it real challenging that way. So it is a very detailed, very long process that involves a lot of people. All right, 2 more. Then we got it. Then we're gone. Big Orange Train 75. I heard we may be trending away from Williams Noeri. What is the latest scoop on him and Camarion Franklin?
Where did we hear that from? Nothing's changed with Williams Noeri. I know, I'm a smart ass. I get it. Where did we hear this from? No one said that. Again, a few people who randomly look at the board see, the Oklahoma guys just put in predictions for Oklahoma. That's because On3 just signed away the Oklahoma rival site to come over to On3 Oklahoma. And when they got here, they had to put in their predictions. They already had their predictions. There's not new information out there. Tennessee's not trending away with Winery. Tennessee was just by there to see him with Tim Banks. Everything's fine. Now, it's a Tennessee-Oklahoma battle. It's a coin flip top recruitment. You got the best of the best going for the number 2 player in the country. But Tennessee is still in a good spot. Keep going over.
Franklin.
I think they're in a good spot there. Again, these are big boy recruitments. And so there's going to be a lot of twists and turns with Cam. There's going to be a lot of twists and turns with Williams. Either way, Tennessee is in as good a spot as they could be in, as we said here on May 18th. Simple as that.
All right, guys, Grant, Rob, I've got Austin pretty lathered up here. Do y'all want to do? I've got a rapid fire in here. Do you want me to rapid fire in?
Rapid fire.
Rob, you want some rapid fire fun?
I would love to, as long as there's. Please tell me there's an over, under, and or a percentage.
All right, we got two.
This question.
We got 2 rapid fires. Dream scenario: Harrell sticks with commitment, then Wingo, Matthews, and Jefferson all want in the boat. You taking all of them, AP?
Oh. Yes, I would.
You got room to take all of them.
Hey, listen, you need receivers. If Dante Thornton's who you think who he is, and you're losing Ramel and Brew, it's basically Squirrel and then a bunch of unproven. So why not roll with, as many as you can get? I can tell you on campus right now, receiver is a hot button. We got to get some.
All right, Swagger 12. Here we go. Before the big recruiting weekend in May, which we're just going to call that the Memorial Day recruiting weekend, right, AB?
That's right, baby. We're not calling it what they're calling it.
All right, we're going to just call it Memorial Day recruiting weekend, and June officials being the other part coming up. In your opinion, as of today, where are they going? All right, here's rapid fire. I'm not going to make you pick schools. I'm just going to make you – I'm going to say
yes or no.
Yes, legit or not a great shot. Okay,
perfect.
All right, you ready?
Yep.
Here we go. Jordan Ross.
I'm going to go legit.
All right. Williams, Noere, what you said. Cameron, you just talked about Franklin. We'll skip him.
Legit.
Jamonta Waller.
No.
Camarion Fountain.
Cameron Fountain, yes, legit.
Cameron, excuse me.
Yeah.
William Satterwhite,
Legit.
Marquez Easley,
That one I'm going to say no.
Daniel Calhoun,
I'm going to say no.
Ronan O'Connell,
Legit.
Max Anderson,
Legit.
Ethan Callaway.
To me, not to be in the middle here, that one could be either one, honestly.
What? Are you taking a hard pass there?
Yeah, I mean, I could see that being legit. I also could see it going the other direction.
Okay. Brandon Baker.
I'm going to say no. To me, that's why I keep talking about tackle. I just don't. I mean, kids from California. I think he does want to go to the SEC, so that gives him a shot. But right now, he's got to make it back again.
Jaden Riddell.
Legit.
Caleb Odom.
No.
Tylen Singleton.
Legit.
Jordan Burns.
Legit, but you're only taking two. So if you're going with Spillman's in, I would go Tylen Singleton over Jordan Burns.
Nathaniel Frazier.
And I'm going to say no. I think that's a long shot.
I had to say that instead of Nate Grant because it would mess me up. Braylon Russell.
Legit.
Peyton Lewis.
Legit.
Mike Matthews.
Legit.
Amari Jefferson.
Legit.
Ryan Wingo.
I'm going to go in the 50-50 range again. That one I think could, go a number of different directions.
Dylan Stewart.
No.
Elijah Rushing.
No. They're swinging on both, but I still say no on both.
Danny Okoye.
Another 50-50 guy.
There you go. There's the latest.
I would give a round of applause if it wouldn't be brutal on the audio. Just know I'm thinking it, AP. Just know I'm thinking it.
There you go.
I don't mind those as long as everybody doesn't go, well, you said. No, I didn't say. I just said they had a legitimate chance.
They're all going to say, oh, you said at some point in time.
They're marking it down. They're marking it down. May 18th, 2023.
I say ABC, and what gets repeated back is AJZ.
And then you get to go, where's that information coming from?
Yeah. Man, look, man, I will give the posters love when they're good, and I don't care to smack them back when they're bad. So, where's it coming from? Who said they're trending the other direction?
People are saying, AP. People are saying. It's a very famous quote. People are saying.
All right, so we'll recap this podcast here. We had a Back to the Future reference that we think Grant Ramey got.
Yes,
we had an Andy Griffith reference that he definitely got. And we realized that Grant Ramey wasn't born when Chris White was playing. And
unbelievable.
His most undervalued guy was
Raynoch Thompson.
Raynoch Thompson in '98, which was a good one.
And Peter Lawford.
Cubs didn't like my laces in comment.
I can't believe you picked two specialists as your underrated guys.
You did.
And all the years covering football.
A holder.
The Benson Scott thing was just funny because Benson.
You took a holder and a punter, is what you took.
Specialists
I took Tyrone Hines, baby.
You did. That's right. That's true.
You took Hines.
I realistically took Leverton and Tyrone Hines. Benson Scott was just to say his name because that's my guy.
Hines 47.
I called David Leverton, and Mark Bradley was in the house, and he was committing as he called. I got if we'd had FaceTime at that point, we could have done that one live with him actually telling Mark Bradley across the room in his house that he was committing to the University of Tennessee.
Is that as good as when Kevin Sherrill came down the elevator, walked outside, told me he's going to the Giants, and I let him hit publish on the story that he was leaving for the Giants while everybody else in the opposing our competition was inside looking at their phones going.
Kevin Scher posting his own stories at Volquest.com. All right, that's going to put the bow tie on this edition of the Volquest.com Mailbag Podcast presented by our good friends at Exterior Home Solutions. He is Austin Price, Rob Lewis, Grant Ramey. I'm Brent Hubbs. Thanks for joining us. Have a great rest of your Thursday, everybody.